All right, so it is 12 o'clock. We are now live. Thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Jessica Moon. I'm the Associate Director of Admissions for the full-time MBA program here at UC Davis. I'm also a current student with our part-time MBA program. So today the focus of the webinar is going to be around diversity, inclusion here at UC Davis and specifically at the GFM. So again, thank you for joining, and I hope that you are able to take away a lot from it. If you have any questions or concerns or just kind of feedback you'd like to share, feel free throughout the webinar to comment in the chat off to the side, or to shoot me an email after this email is over, and I'd be happy to respond that way, or to connect you with one of my wonderful panelists. But okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to ask Ryan to take over. We're going to show you a brief presentation of what GSM and Davis has to offer.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Jessica. One of the things I really enjoy doing is basically celebrating diversity at this university, and I appreciate the opportunity to do so. So what I wanted to do is kind of take a step back and kind of look at, where we're at and what we're doing and where we are going forward. So one of the things that's really been an important initiative for UC Davis, and in particular the Graduate School of Management, is really folding in an element of diversity and really celebrating the role that it plays and how it contributes to the meaningful participation of students. Mm-hmm. One of the key quotes that actually came out recently was in regards to this very fact, talking about embracing diversity and practicing an inclusive excellence and striving for equity, and really working towards making UC Davis a place of excellence for learning and working by supporting a culture that values the contributions and aspirations of all our students, staff, and faculty, while promoting wellness and cultivating the open interchange of ideas. Okay. All right. So one of the things that I wanted to kind of talk about is kind of where we're at right now. So what we're looking at here is basically a breakdown of some of the different race and ethnic groups at UC Davis in general. One of the things you can see in the bottom, we look at some of these pie charts, we have a significant proportion of women. Women have really represent themselves in our community, represent a little over 60% of the overall UC Davis community. And within this community as well, we see a significant amount of students that are our first generation students, a little over 40%. Now, one of the things that we look at also is basically how does our student body break down on a variety of different race and ethnic categories. We do have a significant international population. Almost 20% of our students are international and really provides a meaningful contribution. And we also have representation by a variety of other different communities as well, with the significant Asian American community, Hispanic community, and other communities as well being represented. So one of the things too here, I don't want you to get too lost in different numbers here, but these bar charts are basically giving us an idea about what does it look like across our different campuses. How is it different for California versus the undergraduate community versus the graduate community, and looking at our faculty and students. One of the things I really want to point out is that the important point with this is really seeing that we have a real mixture of different people, different backgrounds here, and we're really a melting pot that brings together people that can share their experiences and share their knowledge and really create an innovative and engaging environment for our students moving forward. So let's go ahead and take a look specifically at the Graduate School of Management. Okay. So first off, just to kind of let you see some of the numbers here, some of the things that are interesting about our population in particular, they usually have a little over 6 years of work experience. You can see basically the median GMAT's about 670, and our range, our middle 80% tends to reflect that. Of note, we have a very diverse group with almost 50-50 mix of domestic and international students from a variety of different countries, ranging from Asia to South America to Europe, all bringing in a variety of different experiences here. You can see here, our students tend to have an average age of about 30 years, going a range of different spectrums from young 20s up to early 40s even. And we do have a mix of men and women. We have a little over, almost 35% women at this time. This number has changed a little bit over time, but definitely we've had a significant mix basically of genders as well. Now, any student coming into the Graduate School of Management is going to want to know, how can I connect basically with my community and some of the other communities as well? So kind of starting out, let's take a look at the university in general. You can see from this list that we have a significant number of different resources for students to connect with their communities in the campus itself, and to also be able to get involved with different educational opportunities, programmatic opportunities, so that they can serve the larger community, the Graduate School of Management, and even the greater Sacramento area as well. And you can see on here we have different groups such as the International Center, we have an LGBTQIA Center, other centers as well for our Chinese, Indian, and Korean students, as well as African American students. There's really a plethora of different opportunities, really for students to get engaged. Now, the next slide takes a look at one example. This month actually is Pride Month. So we're actually gearing up to do a whole myriad of different activities, basically looking at the LGBTQIA community. And this is done in conjunction with the UC Davis Center. And it spans a variety of different things, from being in a pride parade, to being out on the lawn, to doing different craft events, basically anything to not only engage the LGBTQIA community, but also bring in all of our allies and other people that may want to know not only more about the community, but how they can meaningfully contribute to this community. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the specific events that you may be able to engage at UC Davis. We talked a little bit about different centers that are present here, but let's think a little bit about some of the specific things they do that might be of interest for students. Each year we actually have a powwow. We do have a Black Future Month. As I mentioned, there's Pride Month as well. And there are also different events looking at addressing education and programmatic services for the Asian American community and other communities as well. So let's go ahead and narrow it down to the Graduate School of Management. What are some things that we're doing in particular that students in our graduate school community can really get involved with? We have a variety of different clubs that are active right now, but we've actually called out two here in particular, and I'm going to call out one other one as well, that really we've seen a lot of significant activity in the past 2 years. One in particular is the Women in Leadership. This has been a very engaging community that basically has done programs ranging from networking events to educational programs, as well as working with different national conferences as well. The GSM Pride Network, which myself and another colleague originated a 1.5 years ago, is actually developed to basically provide education around how can the LGBTQIA community be engaged in the business community. What are different educational services around not only that community, but also the larger elements of diversity in the business environment? And then also, how do we engage with national conferences that connect this community with different business opportunities going forward? In conjunction with that, we've also had the Lesbians in Tech programming as well, which really looks at empowering not only lesbians, but also allies that want to get involved in the tech community. In addition to these specific examples I give, there are also national conferences that the school actually is involved with to really put different students that represent different ethnic and racial backgrounds, as well as different gender backgrounds and other communities, and really get them engaged with employers. So from day one, you can really be able to not only work with the UC Davis community, but really work with your community and really translate that into a meaningful career going forward. So looking at some of the different events that we've been able to do with the GSM over the last several years, we've done different sort of diversity panels. We actually had one just yesterday looking at the value proposition in the workplace. But we've also done other sort of specific activities as well. That could be both educational, but also for networking and meeting different people and really having some fun while we're doing all this work. So we've had like Diwali night celebrations. We've been looking at different activities in regards to looking at implicit bias. And also, we had a very engaging program in regards to fairness in the AI industry and kind of the intersectionality around issues around gender, diversity, and the emerging AI industry. Now, UC Davis isn't a silo. We actually are nested in a much larger Sacramento metropolitan area. And along with that, not only do we get to contribute to that community, but in a sense, we get to participate in the different things that that community is doing as well. So keep in mind, we're very close to the Bay Area, so San Francisco as well as Sacramento Pride are big events that we tend to get involved with, but there are a variety of other things as well. We've had the Bay Area Diversity Career Fair, which people are able to get involved with, and similarly, be able to showcase their different backgrounds, but also get engaged with the greater business community. Other events include the Cherry Blossom event, Carnival, and as well as the San Francisco International Arts Festival. So definitely, we want to continue the conversation with regards to diversity. This is something that's very important to UC Davis, to the Graduate School of Management, and I personally am very happy to be able to be a part of this conversation. I think we have some very interesting speakers that are going to be able to speak to this. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Ryan. I am going to we're going to now go ahead and switch over back to the panel. We're going to go ahead. We have a very diverse and wonderful representation of what UC Davis and GSM has to offer. We have Ryan Sweeney, who is a second-year full-time MBA student, Keisha Nichols, who is faculty advisor, as well as a professor here, and comes from a very strong corporate background. We have Elizabeth Moon, who is the Chief Diversity Officer, and Jesse Rodriguez, who is a third year in our part-time MBA program. I'll go ahead and turn it over to our faculty members to give a brief introduction of themselves, their experiences, and kind of insights into what you can look for in terms of diversity here. I'll ask Jesse to go ahead and start our introduction.
Okay. So thank you, Jessica. As Jessica mentioned, I am a third-year part-time student in the Sacramento campus. So take most of my classes in Sacramento, but do take some here in Davis and some over in the Bay Area. When I started up the program, I think an interest of mine was really to go through the program and develop some skills that I could contribute to the Latino business community. Coming from an entrepreneurial family, I really wanted to really learn what it takes to build a successful company and contribute that back to my community. I saw many businesses, some succeed, but many fail. And so I really want to contribute that through my experience in the program. At that time, I was working at the Capitol, working with Latino organizations, actually co-chaired a group called the California Latino Capital Association Foundation, which was really focused on development of Latino professionals. But that also included actually involving youth. And so we did a lot of youth programs in Sacramento. We had an internship program in the Capitol for youth. Separately, I developed this policy boot camp where we brought students from Sacramento, Yolo County, Central Valley, and even LA to the Capitol for this 2-day policy boot camp. So that's really like where, when I came into the program, those were like some of the things that really fortified my involvement in the Latino community and my desire to want to give back. And so during my time in the program, I've been involved with the Chicano Latino Alumni Association. I've been involved with DSAC, which is the Dean Student Advisory Council. So having quarterly meetings with the deans and faculty members, and just be able to provide our input into what we see on campus on a daily basis. Fast forward to now, I actually currently work at an investment consulting firm that was founded by a GSM alum, and part of my focus is to identify Latino-owned businesses that can use some capital to help them to grow and really have a larger imprint in the market that we see. So it's been pretty incredible that my vision coming in has now, through my time here in Davis, really lead to something that what I'm doing now. And then I guess lastly, separately, giving back to the Sacramento community. What I'm giving back as far as culturally is actually the development of this dancing event called Dance on the Edge. And so, which I mean, having Davis as my background to be able to develop it has really helped. And then being in Sacramento and developing relationships and partnerships with the city of Sacramento we host events, we activate public spaces that may need foot traffic, and so we activate them by bringing the sounds of Latin music and culture, and so just exposing that to the greater Sacramento community. So it's been incredible, this growth that I've experienced over the last 3 years.
Thank you, Jesse. Next, Elizabeth.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Moon, as Jessica has shared. I'm the Chief Diversity Officer, is one of my hats, as well as the Associate Director for Career Development. I've been working at the GSM since about 5 years now, and during that time, I've had the pleasure of watching our diversity and inclusion focus really begin to grow. When I first came on, we were hosting once a year diversity symposiums that were well received, but they were only happening once a year, so we felt like the conversation was started, but we weren't able to really see it continue throughout the academic year. So in the last year and a half, I have had the honor of working with staff, faculty, and students to create kind of a 4-part workshop series where we're able to bring in conversations that discuss action for diversity. That was one of the slides you saw, was that idea of bringing action in for diversity, and that was through a committee that I work on with called the Faculty Diversity Committee. And during this time, we have actually seen a growth in our partnerships. We worked with Ryan and the GSM Pride Network to bring in conversations about allyship in the workplace, where we actually had not just students from our program, but faculty, staff, as well as outside employers come and join us in that targeted networking event in San Francisco to really understand, what does it mean to be an ally? How do you become an ally? And how do you ask and gain allyship when you need it in the workplace, which I think is very important as we work through becoming professionals and creating actionable inclusion in the workplace. We also do, with our incoming students, we do a diversity day where we kind of look at implicit bias, we look at microaggressions within a team setting, and we also look at our own personal reflections of how we as a community are very similar, no matter where we're from, and no matter what our backgrounds are, that there are some very good similarities where we can begin to bridge conversations together. We also have worked with the Women in Leadership. We know that the Women in Leadership club that we have here is incredible in their work that they do. Ryan shared some of the things they do, but one of the other things that they do that they started about 3 or 4 years ago is they have a board fellowship program. And so anyone who is part of the GSM community as a student is able to apply to be on different boards. So we have everything from Girls Inc. in the Bay Area that works specifically with young women going into traditionally STEM, but also other areas to help build them up towards college. We have people who work with, I think it's the T-Off group, I think is what they're called, but they work with students who have maybe physical differences. They're blind or deaf. We also have students that work with neurodiversity, so people who have possibly autism or Asperger's. They also are part of those boards and learn about not just what does it mean to be on a board and how do you work through that, but how do you be on a board for an area that really is your passion and your passion point, and how can you move forward with your business acumen that you gain here at the GSM to really push forward initiatives to start that more actionable inclusion. So I really want to give kudos to our Women in Leadership group. The other piece that we've done is, like Ryan mentioned, we had our value proposition of diversity in the workplace last night, and one of our speakers, Lady Itos, who's from the Berkeley Labs, discussed what they've been doing in their workplace environment with this acronym that they called IDEAS. And IDEAS stand for Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Accountability. And I think that conversation that she started last night about that idea of how do you bring in accountability to create equitable, diverse, and inclusive environments and teams to really create and push forward innovation. And I think this is where the Graduate School of Management really sets itself apart. We are a very collaborative community environment. And so we're always looking at how do we build teams? How do we build community that allows each and every voice to be respected? And so we're continuing to move in that direction within the greater UC Davis community as well, about how do we push forward initiatives to create that inclusive, actionable inclusion in all of our spaces here on campus. So I think that's what I have to offer for right now.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Next, we'll move on to Dr. Nichols.
Hi, my name is Dr. Keisha Nichols. I am the Faculty Director for Impact Projects, which is our Capstone course offering, where our graduate students have the opportunity to take what they learn in their first year of programming and apply it in a real-world setting through consulting projects. I am also a lecturer, and I teach primarily in graduate programming, but I also teach the undergraduate tech minor. In terms of what I have to offer around diversity and how I partner for diversity within the university, I really like to think that I partner to position the Davis community in a way that really serves as a bridge to the regional community, but the global community as well. I spend a great deal of time in the Sacramento region really talking about exposure and access in terms of education among minorities, among the minority population. I also spend a great deal of time focusing on entrepreneurship in the minority communities. Much like Jesse described, there are many minority small business owners in the Sacramento region and beyond. Many of them have successful businesses, but many of them have businesses that fail. And so really demonstrating that there is ample opportunity for survival, if you will, in terms of really understanding and leveraging key business concepts that we formally explore here in the university and bringing them to the local regional area so that, again, exposure and access is a real possibility. In addition to thinking about entrepreneurship, I also have an opportunity to engage the region at large around issues of women in leadership, thinking about how women in leadership can become successful and thrive in this, this intense and competitive environment, and really getting them to think about potentially exploring or furthering their education within the Davis community, and taking advantage of some of the things that we have to offer here. Internal to the university, I've had the opportunity to engage in first-gen strategic initiatives. I am a part of a first-generation faculty group that really serves as an outreach or bridge to first-generation students here at the university. There are many complexities that show up in the classroom with first-generation students, and so being able to partner with that student population and helping them negotiate the academic landscape is something that I really enjoy doing. Also just making myself available to minorities on campus, period. I am a member of Sigma Gamma Rho sorority, part of the Divine Nine. So making myself available to that population and community has been quite impactful. Making myself available to minority student athletes so that they understand how to negotiate the landscape and understand that there's a community here available for them to support them as they journey through their education. And I've also had the opportunity recently to become a part of the CMO initiative, which is really engaging undergraduate students who are considering graduate studies, primarily from historically Black universities or historically Hispanic universities, and thinking about transitioning and really demonstrating that a majority environment can be inclusive and provide community and allow them to explore their academic journey in a meaningful and impactful way. So those are just some of the ways that I embrace diversity, equity, inclusion, and inclusion here at the university.
Great, thank you so much. Finally, last but not least, we have Ryan Sweeney.
Great. Well, I think I had a chance to talk a little bit about some of my experiences in the presentation, but just to kind of give you a little bit of background, I'm actually from this area. I grew up around Davis. So this is kind of me coming back to my roots. So this has been a wonderful experience. And coming into this institution, you know, two things in particular really felt like areas that I could give a contribution. You know, number one, being from the LGBT community, this has been a real platform for me to kind of not only explore educational opportunities that are pertinent to my community, but also to allies in the community, but even taking it a step further. You know, in my work over the last year and a half, I've had a chance basically to build out the organization here, but really the great fruit from this organization is the ability to create bigger diversity events, basically partnering with groups such as the Diversity Committee with Elizabeth to really create platforms where we can talk about a larger issue and really engage in a dialogue, talking about people sharing different backgrounds and learning how there may be similarities between different communities that we may not have seen before, and really finding out how can I learn from different people's experiences and carry those forward in my own experiences. You know, kind of going back to our panel we had the other evening, you know, a term that similarly Lady also mentioned was the idea of intersectionality. The concept that every person's sort of a composite whole. We aren't just one box or one silo. You know, it's not just that I'm only an LGBT man, but also, you know, I'm an older applicant as well. I've definitely kind of fallen the higher end of that age strata. So I like to think I'm kind of seasoned. Maybe that's the term I'm going to stick with. But it's the idea that not only do I kind of have one label, but I have many different things that make up who I am. So that kind of segues into the other element where I feel that I've been able to make a contribution. You know, being a little bit older, it's interesting to kind of engage in this community because I've always felt really taken in. Really, I think the word is intimacy. You know, when I think about the Graduate School of Management, the word that comes to mind is intimacy. You know, we can even look at this panel here. Professor Nichols was basically the faculty advisor for a consulting project, our impact project. Elizabeth is practically on my speed dial. Jesse and I are getting to know each other. Jessica and I have had classes together. You know, coming into a school, it can be a little scary sometimes. You might think maybe I'm the only one from this community, or maybe I'm going to stick out, maybe me being the old guy, or me being like the one gay man, sometimes feeling a little bit left out sometimes. I've always felt really brought in, and it's that intimacy that's really made this a compelling place to be at, and to really feel like not only am I embraced, but I'm celebrated in the sense that I can share my story, my history, and people really want to learn from where I've been in my life. So I'm really grateful for this place.
Thank you, Ryan, and thank you, everyone. I think Ryan summed it up really well in that the GSM really is a very intimate community. When you join us, you are entering into a family. You're entering into the GSM family. You have the opportunity not only to share who you are, share what your experience have been, and contribute, but also you have the opportunity to join part of this larger family who really is interested in not only learning from you, but in sharing with you their own experiences and sharing the values and lessons that they've learned through those experiences. We strive hard at the GSM to ensure that we have a very inclusive community, that we are able to learn from each other's diverse experiences, and to take actions to ensure that that's not just a GSM thing, but it's something that has a ripple effect and has an impact on the larger community and larger business world. So now we're going to go ahead and transition over to the Q&A portion of this interview. We have a couple questions that people have asked in previous to this that we wanted to help address, so that we can kind of help to not only provide more insight, but also to help address concerns and help show what our vision is going forward for the GSM. Does anyone have any concluding remarks or comments before we move forward? Okay, great. So the first question that we wanted to address that was brought up to us was, what are some existing plans for the next 5 to 10 years? What is the vision? What are some things that have changed in the past 5 to 10 years? And maybe I'm going to ask Elizabeth, in her dual role of Chief Diversity Officer and Career Development Wonder Woman, to share some insights and share some of her feedback.
So where have we been? I think where we were in the past was, in the recent past, is that we were looking at smaller steps and just having the conversation and the dialogue, which I think is incredibly important to continue. But I think as we move forward, the university as a whole has created a strategic diversity and inclusion plan. We've actually are bringing on a vice chancellor, Dr. Renetta Tull, to work in the diversity and equity and inclusion space here for the whole entire university. Under this direction that we've been given by the chancellor, the Graduate School of Management has been actively collaborating with the wider community to understand how we as an individual school can build out a more specific strategic plan moving forward. And so we are actually currently working on that plan and putting in all the pieces that we know are going to be important, not just for, we have a faculty aspect of it. You know, how do we build out more diverse faculty on staff? I mean, I do believe that one thing we do have at the Graduate School of Management is, compared to other schools, is we have a very high percentage of female faculty, both tenured and latter as well as lecture. And I think we have, I think someone told me, based on Bloomberg's report, we have probably one of the top 10 to 20 schools with the number of female faculty members. So I think that's some place that we really do excel as a school, and I think it's based on percentages. And then, you know, looking at staff, how do we as staff continue to create and build out this collaborative community where each person who walks in the door is welcomed, and especially our students. And so within our staff, we do trainings. We actually, all of us partake in some type of diversity training or initiative every year. It's something that we all put our hearts and souls into making happen. Many of us on here in the building are veteran allies and understanding what it means to be an ally for our vets. We're also, many of us are also LGBTQI allies as well as trans allies. We also have work that we do, like me personally, I work with some of our students who have experienced the foster care system and have been entering into the undergraduate or graduate space a little bit later in life, maybe in their mid to late 20s, possibly even early 30s, and working extensively with that community as well, and understanding how we can build bridges, as Keisha was saying, to that access for opportunity. I think that the way that we're moving forward is that we continue to work with organizations such as CMOL that Dr. Nichols was speaking to, and understanding how do we help students understand that the business world is for them. Each and every single student has an opportunity to be part of the business world. And I think one of our attendees last night, he is the president of the Latinx in Chicano student organization here in the undergraduate space on campus. And he told me that he attended the event because he wanted Latinos within this community to understand that business school is for them. And he wanted to make the connection for us at the business school to help come to them and share with them how business actually works, because for many of them, they only think of the jobs of, doctor, lawyer, engineer, and then they don't know that there's other opportunities available to them. And so having this person at our event last night was really just eye-opening about how we can continue to move forward and make those connections to the wider community. So I think that's kind of where we're headed, is just continuing to collaborate across and within the university.
Thank you. Dr. Nichols, can I ask you to step in and also share some of your insights working as a faculty member, as well as working in all of these different organizations with first-gen students, with Black and Hispanic minority students. Can you share a little bit more about what you feel has been changing at the GSM and Davis in general, and what you envision us doing going forward as well?
In terms of the classroom, I've just seen a shift in terms of not just demographics, but some of the complexities and challenges associated with the learning environment because of the level of diversity associated with the classroom. And it's not just, ethnicity, it's all of the cultural elements that go along with the ethnic groups that are represented, as well as dynamic like first gen. There are stigmas associated with the classroom and resources surrounding the classroom. There are complexities in terms of the way that students learn or consume information. There are cultural elements that impact the way that students engage in the classroom, or the way they feel like they can exercise their thought process or opinions or those sorts of things. So really, it's incumbent for us as faculty to really think about what the student-centered classroom looks like and how we might partner in their learning experience to make it meaningful and impactful. And really getting them to buy into the idea that there's a lot being offered here, not just from the faculty member, but from the environment, the context of the environment itself, and really getting them to understand that this is a real opportunity. There's value here. And to think about how they can not only leverage that within the university environment, but prepare them to leverage what they're getting from the university outside of the university environment in practice. And so over the last few years, I've realized that's become more and more relevant. It's very important. And something that, as a faculty member, as faculty members, that we have to spend a great deal of thinking about in terms of how we engage the ever-evolving student population. So.
Okay, great, thank you. And then Ryan and Justin, you guys are both graduating this June. Can you share a little bit more about what you have seen changing within the GSM in your 2 years and 3 years that you've been here? What are some things that maybe were not available before you started the program? What are some things that you have seen kind of grow as a response to student voice?
I guess I will speak to one general population, overall general here at Davis, but then I will also obviously speak to the specific to GSM. In terms of the general UC Davis population, UC Davis has recently received the title of HSI, so Hispanic Serving Institute. And so through my work with the Hispanic, the Chicano Latino Alumni Association and El Centro, with an organization here on campus, that really provides, it's a center, a space for Latino students to go and receive some of the resources that the university offers to them. And alongside with all the work that the chancellor is doing, I mean, he's making a lot of movements and a lot of action that really, it's focused on this concept or on diversity. In terms of the GSM, I was fortunate enough to participate in the first international impact Capstone project, IMP. Dr. Nichols was my faculty advisor, so that's how I came to know her and really learn from her. But what I would say about this project is that the group itself was extremely diverse, from age, from cultural background, gender. It was a great balance in across all aspects, and so it really put me in a place where I was giving a voice and having to listen to this diverse group and this diverse team, that everybody had a different, different background, different experience. And so through all of that, we were able to put together a ultimately very successful, report and presentation and really analysis that we provided to our client. And so the fact that the GSM is, intimate, but also there's a lot of, it's diverse and that there's so many different individuals from different backgrounds. As moving forward, this international experience to expose our students to this global business world. I think it's incredible, and something that being Nava is definitely pushing, and we'll see more and more fruits come out of that as the years go by.
Definitely. I want to actually build on, some of the things that were just mentioned. Talking about a community, a lot of times we think about the Sacramento community, the Davis community. We really are a community that goes international. We have impact projects that basically have gone to South America. We have other impact projects that are going abroad. Thinking about this reminds me of a conversation I had with a student just last night. And he told me, I don't want to be a student just I don't want to be a businessman in the US. I want to be an international businessman. I want to be somebody that can interact with a diverse community. He's doing international study abroad programs. He's doing impact projects all over basically the country. And part of it is that even if you're in Davis, you really have the opportunity to really be a global citizen. You may be on the farm, you may be actually out in a more rural area, but you get to see it all. You get to really experience a myriad of different things. And, talking about our different communities here, coming in, I don't think I've seen a student has my same background. And I think that's a wonderful thing. It's the feeling that you will always have that littlest bit of discomfort, which is a good discomfort, because it challenges you to grow. It challenges you to listen. And it challenges you to be the person that you want to be. So I think this is a wonderful community, and I see the evolution happening every day that I'm here.
Thank you. Next, I want to hear a little bit more about what you feel what are some big barriers? What are some challenges that we have to overcome in order to continue moving forward?
It's a good question.
Oh, actually, I would love to talk about that. A colleague of mine mentioned that a lot of times when there are different events and we do different educational engagements, sometimes, people come that already are behind the message. So the question is, we have this momentum, we have this concept, we see the value of diversity, we see the innovative spirit that underlies it. But how do we get the message out to people that may not realize that message, or may not be as engaged, or may not understand sort of the true science that supports the value of diversity in school, but also in the workplace? How do you get to that community? And we've made different bridges to different communities, reaching out to different cultural centers, reaching out to different academic centers, and learning how to not so much go against resistance, but it's more the idea of showing the value proposition of it and really having a compelling story. So that's something that I see as sort of the next step to really getting us to the next stage in the diversity realm.
Thank you. That's probably the biggest challenge that we face as a complete institution. What Ryan just brought up is that piece of how do we engage all the people in this conversation and hear their perspectives as well, or allow them to know that they do have a perspective. Because sometimes people don't show up because they feel that their perspective is not necessarily part of the conversation when it's always part of the conversation. So letting students and staff and faculty here know that is definitely a true piece of that conversation. I think the other challenge and I think of it more of as an opportunity, is to really engage with more diverse, just actually engaging more regionally. And regionally, I don't mean just Sacramento, but Sacramento definitely, but also the East Bay and possibly even into Silicon Valley, and really finding opportunities where we can really hear what is happening in those areas. And I think that that's an opportunity for all of us. I know when Admissions put on their Fairness and Artificial Intelligence event with Capital One in the East Bay area, it was very highly attended. And, you know, those are the types of programming and opportunities for connection that we need to continue to build upon. And also our Masters of Science and Business Analytics program partners with women coders. And so they do a lot of work with the Women Who Code group and put on events where there's a lot of that female perspective in the STEM and technology space and talking with them. So I think just building on those opportunities and creating more of those is an opportunity, although maybe somewhat of a challenge sometimes because of time and space for all of us in our daily lives, but to continue in that space.
I would say that there are many layers to the onion in terms of thinking about the challenges associated with diversity, equity, and inclusion. Depending on the lens or perspective, you know, the challenges that are considered paramount may differ. But generally, I would say that we are in a very xenophobic state. The spirit of hatred is alive and well. And I think that safety is the biggest challenge. Being free to express yourself and feeling like it's okay, or showing up as your true authentic self, or feeling like as a minority you can enter a space and be a part of a community that's welcoming and embracing and understanding is challenging. And what I'm really proud of in terms of the university is we're really working hard to be bold. We're really working hard to figure out how we can create that community so that you feel safe showing up as who you are.
Thank you. As a follow-up to that, that was really great, you guys. As a follow-up question to that, what would you say would be a way for people who want to get involved in this? What would be the number one way to make a substantial impact and to get involved in this space of diversity and making it okay to be yourself?
I think one of our speakers last night said it best. He said, don't wait to be asked to lead, just go lead. Go be a part of what it is that you're most passionate about, whether it's through your current organization, maybe they have employee resource groups or team networks, as some companies call them. You know, just put yourself there. Don't be a passive member, be an active member. Be out there, raise your hand and get to work, and build those bridges and figure out how does my passion area or my individual, authentic, real self, you know, what are all those different pieces and how can I bring all those pieces together and work towards bridging all those pieces of who I am as a person. And I think that to me is probably the best reminder and tip, is to just become active in who you are and embrace it. Be yourself and be brave and just go out there and start doing the work, I think is how he put it last night.
I mean, I would definitely agree. I mean, Ryan and myself have been extremely active in sharing our communities and kind of like growing our communities and our allies into different movements that we're pushing. So what I come to find is that a lot of the projects that I get involved with, and I get involved because it's something that I want to do, something that's some passion that I have inside of me. As I move forward to making those things happen, I always find individuals that get excited by my idea and want to help. So that's where the building of partnerships really comes about, because people see the passion and see the vision that I'm sharing. And it's extremely, I mean, it's rewarding to have support come out of places that you may not have seen it right at the get-go. So, yeah.
I would say on the other side of that, also be fearless, have a reflective moment and think about some of the internal scripts that you may be experiencing and some of the fears that you may have about diversity and inclusion. We're at an academy. Here's an opportunity to learn, so engage some of these communities and find out about differences and understand, the beautiful, patchwork that we've got going on here, and just be a part of things.
Okay. Well, can we kind of address what are some of the common misperceptions regarding efforts in diversity? I think everyone has touched on it a bit through what we've shared today, but can we, as a follow-up to how can we get involved, how can you substantially contribute, break down some of the barriers that exist because of common misperceptions?
I'd like to speak of maybe a common misperception about Davis in and of itself. We're often referred to, sometimes I've seen people or heard people say that we're cowtown or we're rural and we're, not very diverse in our perspectives. And I'd like to break some of that down, because I think Davis is a very welcoming community. We're not as rural as we possibly were back in the day. We are very much connected to Sacramento itself. I mean, we're only 15, 16 miles from Sacramento. We have many people who live within our community that travel back and forth to Sacramento, as well as to the Bay Area and San Francisco daily. That's part of their daily commute, is going in and out of San Francisco. We are kind of the calm between the two storms of cities, and that energy of those cities, but you're able to come back here and really put into work and reflect upon what's happening in those spaces in a community that really does accept you as an individual, that really is open to who you are here, especially at UC Davis. And so for me, I'd like to kind of just break those down, and if anyone ever had questions about what's it like to live here, those are questions I would be happy to answer.
I think that in my experience, one of the most or the biggest misconceptions that diversity, equity, and inclusion is just about race, or gender, sexuality. I think those are very prevalent topics today. But they're not the only topics that are captured in diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's really all-inclusive. There are a spectrum of concerns. It's really about anyone that has an issue that they feel like makes them different, or anything that makes them feel like there's inequality or fairness, or just some sort of standard that's out of balance. It's anyone who feels like they're on the periphery or an outsider in any experience. So it's really complex, and like I said, there's a spectrum in terms of the things that are captured in those labels. But definitely, there is more to be considered than just race, gender, and sexuality.
And I think that's very true. I'd just like to jump off on that, Dr. Nichols, is, that is probably the biggest misconception, is more of those visible diversity pieces rather than possibly some of the, pieces of diversity that are not visible. There's also the conversation of, in the research they've shown that our students in rural areas are not having as much access to opportunities as those students possibly in a more urban area, and that universities are trying to make strides in that area to include in their student population some of our more rural students, to bring them into the university so that their perspective of growing up there is understood. There's a socioeconomic piece. There's age is a big one. I mean, Ryan kind of touched on the age piece. There's neurodiversity, whether you maybe are bipolar or on the autism spectrum or Asperger's. Those are all areas that need to be discussed. And then another piece that's very often overlooked is, disability. Understanding if you are someone who has, whether it's visual impairment or hearing impairment, or whether you're, in a wheelchair or other types of mobility issues, how are you accepted? How are you accepted not just in terms of you as an individual, but what structural things have been put in place to allow you to feel accepted? Is there a ramp into your building? Is there an elevator? Are the spaces for your mobility able to navigate between classrooms? All of these things are just clues that are given out there that whether you're accepted or not into that community. And so I think being careful and aware of that spectrum across is important to understand in that inclusion and equity piece.
Thank you. All right. We have time for one last question. We have about 5 minutes left of our webinar, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up. So last question. I'm going to turn it over to the panel. Is there anything that you feel is really important for candidates to the GSM to know, or just anyone who's interested in Davis to know in regards to insights regarding diversity, equity, inclusion? Any questions that weren't addressed but feel is very important to address?
Yeah, I think I'll start with being a part-time student has its issues. It's different than being a full-timer and being at the Davis campus. As a part-timer, we're working full-time, so our schedules are a little bit, where we're going to school on the weekends. And so sometimes we may feel a little distant from the university and from all the resources. I think there's always opportunities through events, and there's always opportunities to come on campus for a class, or really to optimize all the resources that are on campus. So something that may not be apparent, right? As a part-time student, those resources are still available to us. And what I really like about this university is the fact that we do have all these events that bring all the students together. So I do get to collaborate with the Davis students. I get to collaborate with the Bay Area students, and it's it's a network it's actually fairly big once you start thinking about it and looking into it. And there's tons of opportunities for to grow these relationships.
And one thing I'm going to actually go back to, when I first came into Davis, I came in and really wanted to pursue great academics, and I've gotten that. But one of the things that I'm taking away that I value even more potentially was the intimacy I talked about. When you go to a lot of business schools, they'll have hundreds of students. You have dozens of career development people. You'll have dozens of faculty. Here, people know my name. We wave at each other in the hall. The work I want to go into, people actually tailor a program to really meet my needs. And outside of the classroom, people really know who I am and really value who I am and all the different diverse things I bring in my background. I really do feel like I'm in a family here. And I feel like that's something that really is to be celebrated, and it's something that if you're looking for that, this is a place that can really provide that.
All right. Well, thank you to our panel members once again. This was fantastic. Your insights and your just experiences has really added value to the webinar, and I hope you as the audience have been able to gather a lot from it. Again, feel free to reach out if you do have any additional questions or concerns. At the GSM, we really pride ourselves on the diverse community that we have, the intimate community that we have, and we really strive to take action to ensure that we're sharing that pride, sharing the need to continue to break into different frontiers, break down barriers, to take advantage of the resources that we have. They're just the relationships that we build. So again, thank you for being with us today. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and we look forward to seeing you at future webinars. Thank you.